Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to bring you the crucial insights you need to stay well informed. Today, we're unpacking a technology you rely on every single day, probably without giving it a second thought. Imagine you're browsing your favorite online store, maybe sending a confidential work email, or, I don't know, updating your smart home devices. These everyday actions feel inherently secure, don't they? But what's the invisible architect, the silent guardian, making all that digital trust possible? Well, it's something called public key infrastructure, or PKI.
That's right. PKI truly is the unsung hero of our digital world. It's operating tirelessly in the background. If you've ever seen that familiar padlock icon in your browser or securely logged into an application, you've benefited directly from PKI.
And today, we're taking that deep dive into just that, public key infrastructure. It's the foundational framework underpinning, well, almost all secure digital communication and identity verification online. We'll be exploring its intricate workings, its vast and, honestly, sometimes surprising applications, and the evolving landscape of digital trust. It's far more pervasive and vital than most people probably realize.
And our mission for you today is really to pull back the curtain on this critical technology. We want to demystify some of these, complex terms, highlight PKI's absolutely essential role in today's digital economy, and hopefully equip you with a deeper understanding of how digital trust is built, how it's maintained, and as we'll definitely get into, sometimes how it's challenged. Get ready for some serious aha moments, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We've gathered a wealth of information for this deep dive, pulling insights from leading cybersecurity experts, organizations in the space. We're talking research from the likes of Hashed Out by the SSL Store, the DigiCert 2024 State of Digital Trust Report, Global Sign, Sectigo, Entrust, JScape, Small Step, TechTarget, eMudra, even some fascinating perspectives from UC San Diego. It's going to be a really crucial conversation for understanding modern digital security. Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the foundation. What is PKI and why does it matter so profoundly? When we talk about PKI, it's important to understand we're not talking about a single piece of software or a specific tool. It's much bigger than that, isn't it?
Precisely. Yeah, absolutely. At its core, PKI is a comprehensive framework. It's a whole ecosystem, really. It brings together technologies, policies, hardware, software, and established procedures that collectively make secure communication over the internet even possible. Think of it as the entire support structure allowing digital entities, people, devices, servers, to prove who they are and communicate privately at scale.
And its impact is, well, way more widespread than you might realize. We're talking about everything from securing the website you might be browsing right now, to the emails you send, to the smart devices in your home, yeah, even your smart coffee maker, and even the incredibly complex mission-critical systems that run, say, a nuclear power plant. They all rely on PKI operating tirelessly behind the scenes. It truly is the hero you rarely notice.
Until something goes wrong, maybe.
That's a great point. And to give you some historical context, just imagine trying to conduct secure international business or even just to exchange a private message before, say, the mid to late 1970s. Securely exchanging encrypted messages often required physical in-person meetings or incredibly cumbersome manual key exchanges. Can you imagine the logistical nightmare? For international diplomacy or global commerce, it just wouldn't scale. PKI really revolutionized this by providing a scalable, reliable way to verify identities and encrypt data digitally. It effectively bridged vast geographical distances and enabled the global digital economy we all rely on today. So at its heart, PKI serves several core functions. That's what makes it such an incredibly versatile framework underpinning modern digital life. Fundamentally, it allows us to identify and authenticate authorized users and devices. No more just guessing who you're talking to online.
Right. And beyond identification, it crucially encrypts data transmitted between two parties or systems. That ensures confidentiality. So your private conversations and sensitive information actually remain private. It also protects software, documents, and other data from unauthorized modifications. That guarantees their integrity. And at a higher level, PKI adds an essential layer of verifiable security to both public and private IT environments and assets, which is, let's face it, absolutely vital in today's increasingly complex and threat-filled digital landscape.
Now, for a system this comprehensive, it's got to have some key components working together. Let's break down the main players that make PKI tick. First up, there's the Certificate Authority, or CA.
The CA is essentially the trusted digital passport office of the internet. That's a good analogy. It's a trusted third party responsible for issuing and managing digital certificates. They meticulously verify the identity of entities, whether that's an individual, a device, or an entire organization before they issue a certificate. This process ensures that a public key is correctly and reliably associated with that verified identity. Major players you might recognize include names like DigiCert, Sec2Go, GlobalSign, Intrust, and even Let's Encrypt, which many people use for free certificates.
Okay, and then we have the Registration Authority, or RA. You can think of the RA as maybe the front desk of that digital passport office, handling the initial checks.
Exactly, that works. The RA acts as an intermediary, verifying the user's identity and approving certificate requests on behalf of the CA. They basically make sure all the preliminary paperwork and verification steps are in order before the request goes to the final approver. It streamlines the process while maintaining those rigorous security standards.
Right. So once a certificate is issued, it needs a place where it can be accessed and verified. That's where the certificate directory comes in.
The certificate directory functions as a public repository, kind of like a digital filing cabinet, where issued certificates are stored. This allows them to be easily accessed for validation during digital communications. It provides a layer of transparency and accessibility that's essential for the broader PKI ecosystem to function properly.
But what happens if a certificate gets compromised? Or maybe it's just no longer valid before its natural expiration date. That's where the Certificate Revocation List, or CRL, becomes essential, right?
The CRL is a critical component, yes. It's a periodically updated list containing the serial numbers of certificates that have been revoked by the CA before their scheduled expiration date. This could be because a private key was compromised, or maybe the certificate was issued improperly, or other security concerns that render the certificate untrustworthy. We'll definitely dive into the complexities and, frankly, the significant challenges of revocation later on. It's a particularly tricky area in digital trust.
Okay, looking forward to that. And finally, at the very cryptographic bedrock of PKI, we have the public key and private key pair. These are the fundamental tools of the trade.
This is truly foundational stuff. When you generate a key pair, the public key is, well, as its name suggests, shared openly. Anyone can use it to encrypt data destined for you or to verify a digital signature that you've made. However, the corresponding private key must remain confidential and secure. That's absolutely critical because it's exclusively used by you for decrypting data or creating your own digital signatures. The security of the entire PKI system ultimately hinges on the secrecy and protection of that private key.
So that's the foundation laid out. But here's where it gets really interesting. How does this trust mechanism actually work in practice? Especially in something like TLS transport layer security, which, let's be honest, many of us still know is SSL, or secure sockets layer.
Right, TLS. It provides 3 fundamental security properties for online interactions that are absolutely critical for establishing trust. First, confidentiality. This ensures that any data transmitted between, say, your browser and a website remains private and unreadable to any unauthorized parties.
Okay, so no one can snoop on sensitive information like passwords or credit card numbers. That makes intuitive sense.
Exactly. Second is integrity. This guarantees that the data has not been altered or tampered with during transmission, so you can be confident that the message you sent or the web page you received is precisely what was intended without any unwelcome changes along the way.
And finally, and maybe most critical for PKI, is authenticity. This validates the source or origin of data. It's how you know who you're actually talking to online, right? Making sure the server you're connecting with is truly the one it claims to be, not some imposter.
Precisely. Let's quickly trace how HTTPS works to bring these concepts together. When you visit an HTTPS website, the website owner has already gone through the process of obtaining a TLS certificate from a certificate authority. This certificate contains the website's public key and, crucially, it's digitally signed by the CA. This signature is what cryptographically links the website's verified identity-say, kumard.com-d, to its unique cryptographic identity, its public key.
So when my browser connects to an HTTPS server and gets that certificate, it doesn't just blindly accept it. It performs several crucial checks first. The first one is a chain of trust verification. What's that about?
That's right. Your browser comes pre-installed with a set of highly trusted root CA certificates. These are like the ultimate anchors of trust. It then verifies the server certificate by tracing it back through any intermediate certificates until it successfully reaches one of those trusted roots. This chain of trust is absolutely fundamental to the web PKI. It ensures that the issuer of the certificate is indeed who they claim to be and is recognized as trustworthy by your system. It's kind of like checking a notarized document by verifying the notary's official credentials, tracing it back to the source of authority.
Okay, that makes sense. Next, it performs host name verification. This sounds straightforward, but maybe it's not always.
It's a critical check. This check ensures that the domain name listed in the certificate actually matches the website you are trying to access. And while it sounds simple, it isn't always straightforward because you have things like wildcard certificates, which cover multiple subdomains, like .example.com. Or you might have a single certificate listing multiple names, like for different services run by the same company. So the browser has to navigate that complexity carefully.
Got it. And finally, the browser performs revocation checks. This is where things get a bit more complicated, as you hinted at earlier when we discussed CRLs.
Indeed. The browser attempts to check if the certificate has been revoked by its issuer before its scheduled expiration date. If a certificate is compromised, maybe the private key was stolen, or it was issued improperly, it needs to be invalidated immediately. This is a vital step, but as we'll discuss in more detail later, the current mechanisms for performing these checks reliably face some significant, maybe even fundamental challenges.
Okay, definitely something to circle back to. So PKI is clearly essential, and it's truly everywhere, operating beneath the surface of our digital lives. Let's look at some practical applications and maybe some compelling examples, starting with the distinction between public and private PKI.
Sure. Public PKI involves digital certificates issued by publicly trusted certification authorities, like the ones we mentioned earlier, DigiCert, Let's Encrypt, and so on. These are primarily used to secure public-facing assets, things like websites, web applications, public APIs, and other services. That reassuring padlock icon in your browser, that's public PKI diligently at work, securing that connection.
And then on the flip side, many organizations also operate their own private PKI internally.
Exactly. Organizations can establish and manage their own private certification authority. It's like their own internal passport office. This internal system is used specifically to authenticate their own devices and users. It secures access to internal applications, intranet sites, maybe endpoint devices like laptops or phones, and other confidential resources. It's all about building a robust, trusted ecosystem within their own organizational boundaries.
One of the most common and visible PKI applications, as you mentioned, is securing public websites, web apps, and services through those encrypted connections, HTTPS.
Right. Installing a valid SSL/TLS certificate on your web server effectively transforms an insecure HTTP connection into a secure HTTPS one. Without it, any sensitive data, think usernames, passwords, credit card numbers, personal info transmitted between your browser and that server, could potentially be intercepted in plain text by threat actors. It's a foundational vulnerability if it's left unsecured. Really basic stuff, but critical.
And beyond just encrypting the data, these SSL/TLS certificates also provide digital identity validation for the websites themselves, right?
That's a key point. Depending on the certificate's validation type, for example, an extended validation or EV certificate, which requires more rigorous vetting, it can provide rich, verified details about the organization running the site. This powerfully assures users that they are interacting with a legitimate entity, not an imposter site. Much like the detailed certificate information you can actually click on and view for major sites like Amazon.com or the SSLstore.com right in your browser, it builds that crucial, visible trust.
Okay, now here's where PKI gets really powerful, I think. Offering solutions for authenticating users and devices without relying on traditional passwords. You mentioned a recent IBM report showing attackers often just walk in through the front door using compromised credentials. It's not always sophisticated hacking. Passwords are a massive problem. They're susceptible to phishing, social engineering, data leaks, just poor management.
Absolutely. And PKI-based authentication offers a really robust alternative, significantly reducing those attack surfaces created by weak or stolen passwords. These kinds of applications are typically handled by an internal, private PKI system set up within an organization.
Let's look at user authentication first. This covers a wide spectrum of applications, doesn't it? We're talking about everything from using certificates for Active Directory user profiles, maybe even physical ID badges that have a chip, to SMIME certificates for digitally signing and encrypting emails.
Yeah, in each of those cases, it's fundamentally about ensuring that only authorized, authenticated users can access specific internal applications, intranet sites, and sensitive resources. Even if a user has multiple certificates installed on their device for different purposes, their access is still restricted based on what their verified identity is actually authorized for. It reinforces that layered security approach, that principle of least privilege.
And PKI is absolutely critical for securing wireless network authentication, too.
Oh, definitely. PKI-based Wi-Fi access allows authorized users to prove their digital identity without ever exposing traditional passwords. Passwords on Wi-Fi are particularly susceptible to things like man-in-the-middle attacks or evil twin hotspots set up by attackers. With PKI, their private keys are often securely stored on their device's Trusted Platform Module, or TPM chip. That adds another layer of hardware-backed security, meaning the credentials themselves are never directly transmitted over the air.
Right. And similarly, VPN authentication benefits immensely from PKI.
Absolutely. PKI-based VPN authentication enables authorized users to connect securely to a virtual private network. It establishes those secure encrypted connections back to the corporate network without exposing those vulnerable credentials that threat actors so readily target through phishing or brute force attacks. It's all about securing those critical access points to your internal networks, especially with remote work being so common.
Then there's device authentication. This focuses on securing the devices themselves and the systems they connect to, separate from any specific user logging in.
Exactly. A device certificate validates the legitimacy of the device, not a specific user operating it. This is ideal and increasingly critical for a growing number of applications, especially the rapidly expanding Internet of Things, or IoT. Think critical medical devices sending patient data, aerospace sensors, smart city infrastructure components, or industrial factory sensors controlling machinery. Each needs to prove its identity before communicating or receiving commands. It's also crucial for mobile devices, ensuring secure access for remote employees using company-issued or even bring your own device BYOD setups. And furthermore, PKI is a really complementary framework for authenticating and securing edge devices and their data connections in the expanding world of edge computing, where trust needs to be established right at the furthest points of a network.
Okay, so beyond securing networks and devices, PKI plays a vital role in securing and authenticating emails. Email remains a business staple, but it's notoriously prone to things like spoofing, interception, and alteration.
It really is. Email digital signatures, which are made possible by a SMIME certificate, allow you to apply a cryptographic signature to an email. This assures recipients that the message is authentic, meaning it's truly from the claimed sender and hasn't been altered in transit. Both internal colleagues and external partners can verify its legitimacy, which is crucial for fighting those sophisticated phishing and business email compromise attacks.
And for even greater privacy, PKI enables secure end-to-end email encryption.
Right. When both the sender and the recipient are using SMIME digital certificates, the sender can encrypt the email's contents using the recipient's public key before it even leaves their mailbox. This provides true end-to-end security, ensuring the message remains private and secure from the moment it's sent until it's decrypted only by the intended recipient using their private key.
Email server authentication also falls under the PKI umbrella. That's often overlooked, isn't it?
Yes, it is. SSL/TLS certificates can secure connections between mail servers, not just between a user's browser and a web server. By default, protocols like SMTP, which handles mail transfer, are often unencrypted, leaving email transmissions vulnerable as they hop between servers. Microsoft has long recommended securing these connections, and Google, since December 2023, now actually requires an SSL/TLS certificate on your email server. This enables server authentication and ensures messages are sent via secure, encrypted channels between servers. It's a significant step in improving the security of the entire email ecosystem.
And here's a relatively new and I think exciting application that builds immediate brand recognition and trust, displaying verified company logos right there in the email inbox.
This is pretty cool. This is where verified mark certificates, or VMCs, come in. When combined with brand indicators for message identification, BMI, and DMRC email authentication protocols, VMCs allow your trademarked company logo to display right next to your email in users' inboxes in supporting clients like Gmail. With a VMC and BIMI properly set up, you no longer have to rely solely on recipients unquestioningly trusting your email address enough to click on it. Instead, you can visually assure them the emails are authentic by displaying your verified, trademarked company logo up front. Think of seeing the official Chase logo right there in your Gmail app next to an email from them. It's a really powerful visual trust signal that helps combat impersonation and phishing.
That is pretty neat. PKI also offers robust solutions for proving your documents' legitimacy and ensuring they haven't been altered. Organizational contracts, legal agreements, sensitive reports, these are critical assets, and PKI helps ensure they aren't tampered with after being officially signed.
Definitely. Document signing certificates, or sometimes multi-purpose ESMI certificates, allow you to cryptographically sign files like Microsoft Office documents and Adobe PDF files. This accomplishes three key things. First, it asserts your verified digital identity using that cryptographic digital signature. Second, it provides a way to verify whether the document has been altered in any way since it was signed. And third, it builds critical digital trust, significantly enhancing your company's brand and reputation by proving the authenticity and integrity of your official documents.
But the security of these signed documents is only as strong as the keys used to sign them. Where do those private keys need to be stored? That sounds critical.
Precisely. It's paramount. The private keys for document signing certificates must be stored on secure hardware. We're talking about things like secure USB tokens that require a PKI, or dedicated hardware security modules, HSMs, which are specialized cryptographic appliances, or increasingly, cloud-based signing solutions that utilize HSMs in the cloud. This is fundamental to prevent those keys from falling into the wrong hands and being used by malicious actors to forge signatures or tamper with important documents. You can't just leave the key lying around on a hard drive.
Right. And for our listeners in Europe, PKI is absolutely central to delivering IDAS-compliant qualified electronic signatures, or QECs. These carry significant legal weight over there.
Yes, the IDAS regulation, initially introduced in 2014 and with the updated IDAS 2.0 approved in February 2024, provides a robust legal framework for electronic signatures. It makes qualified electronic signatures, or QES, the legal equivalent of handwritten signatures across the entire EU. Creating a QES relies on using a qualified certificate for electronic signatures and having the private key generated and managed using a qualified signature creation device, or QSCD. These QSCDs adhere to very stringent security requirements. The key takeaway is the high level of legal assurance provided by this PKI-backed system within the EU.
Okay, shifting gears slightly to software now. PKI is absolutely critical for protecting software integrity and securing the entire software supply chain, which is a huge topic these days.
Oh, hugely important. To ensure your applications and code are as secure as possible, you sign them with a publicly trusted code signing certificate. This creates a digital signature that builds trust with operating systems like Windows or Mac OS. It verifies your digital identity as the publisher and generates a cryptographic checksum of the code. This immediately informs users if your software has been altered in any way since it was signed. It's what prevents those alarming unknown publisher warnings you sometimes see in tools like Microsoft Defender Smart Screen or Windows User Account Control. Instead, users see your trusted, verified publisher status.
And as software becomes more modular, built from many different components, maybe open source libraries, authenticating those software components themselves is also a growing need, right?
Absolutely. A software bill of materials, or SBOM, is basically a list of all the ingredients in your software, all components, third-party dependencies, open source code, everything. Signing your SBOM with a code signing certificate, often through a cloud-based service, adds another crucial layer of security. It provides an authenticated list of components and helps prove the origins of its code, its digital provenance. This significantly increases customer confidence in the integrity and security of the entire software supply chain.
Right. And finally, for device manufacturers, especially in IoT, PKI is key to authenticating those over-the-air, or OTA, updates they push out to their products.
Yeah, for IoT manufacturers who regularly publish updates, think about Apple iOS updates or Tesla vehicle software updates, signing these OTA packages is essential. It ensures that firmware patches and software updates are trusted, that they actually came from the manufacturer, and that they arrive unaltered on the device. This allows for secure remote deployment of critical updates without needing physical intervention, which is absolutely essential for managing a massive fleet of connected devices, especially those deployed in remote or critical infrastructure settings.
Okay, so we've talked about digital certificates and digital signatures quite a bit, and you often hear these terms used almost interchangeably. But there's a fundamental difference, isn't there, even though they're obviously deeply intertwined? Let's try and clarify that nuance.
Good idea. In general, the term digital certificate describes all X.509 certificates. It's essentially a small file that acts as a verified digital identity on the internet. You can think of it as the digital credential, like a passport or a driver's license.
And what's inside that digital certificate, that credential, that makes it so trustworthy?
A certificate includes crucial pieces of information. Things like the entity's name, whether that's a person, a device, or an organization. It includes its public key, it has an expiration date, and very importantly, it includes the digital signature of the certificate authority that issued it. For a certificate, whether it's an SS LTLS cert, an email signing cert, code signing device, or document signing cert, to be trusted by browsers, email clients, or operating systems, it must be digitally signed by a publicly trusted CA. That CA signature is the foundation of its trustworthiness. It acts as a verifiable endorsement from that trusted third party.
Okay, so if that's the digital certificate, the credential itself, what then is a digital signature? How does that part work in practice?
So, a digital signature is a unique numeric string of identifying data that gets affixed to a digital asset, like an email, a document, or a piece of software code. It's a cryptographic mark, almost like a visual marker, but done with math, that validates the signer's identity. And it provides key properties like non-repudiation, the signer can't deny signing it, authenticity, it proves who signed it, and integrity, it proves the content hasn't changed. Think of it like having a notary public digitally sign and stamp documents for you. It guarantees that the sender cannot deny sending the message and that the content hasn't been altered since it was signed. Technically, the signer takes the digital content, creates a unique fixed-length summary of it called a hash, and then encrypts that hash digest using their private key. That encrypted hash is the digital signature. The recipient then uses the sender's public key from their certificate to decrypt the signature, independently calculates the hash of the original content they received, and compares the two hashes. If they match, the signature is valid, the identity is confirmed, and the content is unaltered.
Okay, so it's clear they work together, but it's not a one-to-one thing. Can you give us some examples of how they're intertwined in those applications we discussed?
Absolutely. Let's take email signing. An CME digital certificate is installed on your email client. That's the credential. That certificate then gives you the ability to embed your digital signature on outgoing emails using the private key associated with that certificate. So the certificate enables the signature. Similarly, with code signing, a code signing certificate allows a developer to apply a unique digital signature to their software using their private keys. This signature, along with the software's content, is hashed. If either the software code or the signature itself is altered, the hash changes, and that triggers a security warning for the user trying to install it.
And how about with the SSLTLS certificates for websites? How does the signature fit in there?
Right. After you, as a website owner, obtain an SSL certificate, often by submitting a certificate signing request, or CSR, the certificate authority verifies your information. Then, the CA inserts its digital signature into your certificate using its own highly protected private keys. Browsers then verify the CA's digital signature using their pre-downloaded list of trusted root certificates, establishing that crucial chain of trust we discussed earlier. The CA's signature vouches for your certificate.
Got it. Now, beyond just the basic concepts, the EU's IDS framework provides a great example of different levels of electronic signatures based on how much assurance they provide. That seems relevant.
Yes, this is a crucial distinction, especially for legal validity. At the bottom, you have basic electronic signatures. These offer low assurance. These are simple computer-recorded proofs of intent. Things like just typing your name at the bottom of an email, drawing a signature with your mouse, or clicking an I agree button. They're very easily disputed and are generally only suitable for low-risk internal documents, or maybe when combined with other proofs like sending a one-time password to a verified email or phone number.
Okay, so that's basic. Then you move up to advanced electronic signatures.
Under the EU IDS regulation, these are digital signatures. They use PKI and digital certificate issued by any trust service provider, TSP. They provide much stronger proof of identity and are significantly harder to dispute because they use cryptography to lock down the document. This makes any subsequent tampering immediately evident, so higher assurance.
And then the strongest category under IID with the highest legal standing is qualified electronic signatures, or QES.
Right. These are also digital signatures, but they come with very stringent requirements. They must be generated using specific protocols. They require certified hardware, like a qualified signature creation device, QSCD, to manage the private key securely. And they must use a qualified certificate issued by a qualified trust service provider, QTSP, which undergoes rigorous auditing. The key here is that QES are legally recognized as equivalent to a handwritten signature across the entire EU, providing the absolute utmost level of legal and digital assurance. And it's worth noting, many countries outside the EU, like Mexico, Singapore, Japan, also use similar tiered approaches for digital signatures to manage trust levels and legal enforceability.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit and look at the broader landscape of digital trust.
Yeah.
We need to talk about why it's become so critical, especially for enterprises. The DigiCert 2024 Stated Digital Trust Survey found a really overwhelming consensus among businesses on this.
It's astounding, really. The data is unequivocal. Digital trust isn't just some IT concern anymore. It's a fundamental make-or-break business imperative. Enterprises almost universally recognize that losing customer trust means losing customers, period. And that's a stark reality echoed by a vast majority of consumers themselves. This isn't a niche issue. It's truly foundational to business success in the digital age.
What are the main driving forces behind this intense focus on digital trust right now? What's pushing it to the forefront?
Well, there are several powerful factors converging all at once. There's the exponential increase in remote workers compared to just a few years ago, pre-pandemic. There's the proliferation of networks that now extend way beyond the traditional data center out to the edge and connecting countless partners and customers. And perhaps most importantly, customers are now actively demanding digital trust from enterprises as a baseline expectation. It's not optional anymore. Beyond these big ones, we also face an increasingly interconnected world, a constant rise in more sophisticated threat actors and exploits, growing network and application complexity, the sheer accelerating pace of business, and an ever-expanding threat surface. It's truly a perfect storm of challenges, making that foundation of trust more vital than ever before.
Given all that pressure, it's not surprising that enterprises face significant hurdles in actually managing digital trust effectively. That DigiCert report highlighted 5 key issues that consistently seem to plague organizations. First, a pervasive lack of staff expertise in this area.
Yeah, that's a big one. Digital trust is still a relatively new and rapidly evolving discipline. Many IT teams, especially those outside dedicated security roles, lack centralized expertise. And often, older, sometimes brittle, private PKI systems that are hard to manage prevent teams from gaining the much-needed hands-on experience. This kind of perpetuates a cycle of limited knowledge and operational fragility. It's hard to get good at it if the tools are clunky.
Right. Second challenge, the growing complexity of the networks and applications themselves.
Definitely. Modern networks have expanded far beyond those traditional on-premise data centers. Now they include edge networks, thousands of remote workers connecting from everywhere, multiple public and private cloud environments. Applications have also shifted dramatically from those old monolithic structures to highly distributed microservice architectures. And many of these components might not even be under direct enterprise control, like SaaS apps. This makes achieving and maintaining consistent digital trust incredibly difficult across such a sprawling, dynamic, and often fragmented environment.
Third, just the sheer scope of what needs to be secured these days is exploding exponentially.
It really is. As digital transformation efforts progress, and they are progressing rapidly everywhere, more and more digital assets become mission critical. We're talking everything from internal databases and APIs to customer-facing applications, mobile apps, IoT devices. The list goes on. This leads to an exponential increase in the number of things enterprises need to protect, straining existing security resources and capabilities often to their breaking point. It's a scale problem.
Fourth, and this is a significant hurdle, sometimes a lack of consistent management support or budget.
Yeah, that's a tough reality. Economic pressures, like the substantial tech layoffs we saw in 2023, can sometimes lead to wavering commitment to digital trust initiatives from leadership. This forces difficult decisions, sometimes deprioritizing security investments in favor of more immediate cost savings, even when the long-term risks of a breach or outage are substantial. It's a constant balancing act.
And finally, the rapid expansion of the cryptographic assets themselves, like all those certificates, is proving difficult to manage effectively.
Exactly. Digital certificates are fundamental to establishing trust. We've established that. But managing them effectively at the vast scale enterprises now face, often tens or hundreds of thousands, even millions, is incredibly time-consuming and challenging if done manually. The survey found the typical enterprise has maybe 5 or fewer departments issuing certificates, but most felt more departments should be involved. This often indicates a decentralized and potentially chaotic landscape that's just ripe for errors, expired certificates, and security vulnerabilities slipping through the cracks.
And these challenges have very real, very costly consequences. The report details a staggering cost of digital trust mishaps across different areas. The data shows widespread incidents across the board, doesn't it?
Indeed, it's quite sobering. In general enterprise trust, nearly all, 98%, report experiencing outages and brownouts related to trust issues, like expired certificates. 92% have faced data breaches linked to trust failures, and 74% have encountered compliance issues. Agility is dangerously low. Virtually none felt they could respond extremely quickly to outages, only 1% to security incidents, and just 5% to changes in certificate standards. And a significant 61% admit they are underprepared for a post-quantum world, estimating it will take them 3 years just to get ready. This reveals a profound systemic vulnerability. For IoT and connected devices, the picture is also grim. Most, 93%, experience data breaches, often because a poorly secured device provided an easy backdoor into the network. 93% also reported outages and brownouts, and 84% experienced device break-ins. Alarmingly, 87% admitted to communicating personally identifiable information, PII, from IoT devices over unencrypted channels. That's a huge red flag. Enterprises clearly struggle with updating devices securely and managing, especially revoking device identities effectively.
Wow. And the problems extend right into software development and even e-signatures as well.
Yes, absolutely. Software trust is plagued by widespread issues. 86% reported data breaches related to software trust. 80% reported breaches of their actual software build infrastructure, a very sensitive area. 79% experienced software failures simply due to expired code signing certificates, halting deployment, or causing user warnings. 78% admitted to delivering software containing malware or known vulnerabilities, and 75% missed release deadlines specifically due to code signing problems. A really concerning 74% had private code signing keys stolen or misused, and 59% experienced software supply chain compromises. And while 99% say they signed their source code, only a third signed containers in serverless environments. Almost none could quickly identify all applications linked to a compromised code signing key. Then, for eSignature trust, the incident rates are shockingly high. 100% reported bad actors misrepresenting documents, 100% faced issues with managing paper-based contracts alongside digital ones, and 100% experienced identity theft or impersonation related to signatures. 99% had legal issues with cross-border contracts, 96% with compliance, and 87% dealt with organizations disputing signed agreements. This segment also showed the lowest maturity level overall. Only 4% rated themselves extremely mature, and it's often administered by non-technical staff like legal, HR, or procurement, highlighting a critical gap in technical oversight for these legally binding digital processes.
That's quite a list of problems. But there are valuable lessons to be learned from the digital trust leaders identified in the survey. These are the top third of organizations who significantly outperform the laggards in the bottom third. What are they doing differently?
Well, these leaders demonstrate profoundly better outcomes, as you'd expect. They reported virtually zero outages, very few data breaches, and no compliance or legal issues related to enterprise trust. That's a massive difference. Crucially, they're nearly 6 times more likely to be prepared for post-quantum computing. 59% is only 11% of laggards. This shows a clear correlation between taking a proactive, mature approach to digital trust management and achieving superior resilience and better business outcomes.
So what key practices do these leaders consistently employ that the others, the laggards, often don't?
Leaders consistently have what the survey called extremely mature digital trust practices across the board. They're much more likely to centralize certificate management, often within the IT or security department, rather than letting it be fragmented. They actively use tools like SMIME certificates for email security more often, and they report having significantly fewer rogue or unmanaged certificates lurking in their environments. For software trust, leaders are more than twice as likely, 80% versus 38%, to use a formal approval process just to access cryptographic keys, showing tighter control. And they find it significantly easier to generate comprehensive software bills of materials, SBOMs. In eSignature Trust, they simply show greater maturity in understanding, implementing, and managing the policies and governance required for secure e-signatures and e-seals. The pattern is really clear. Proactivity, centralization, automation, and formal processes are key differentiators.
Okay, so if an organization wants to optimize its digital trust efforts and maybe move towards becoming one of those leaders, what are DigiCert's top recommendations based on this research?
They boil it down to 4 key actions. First, take inventory. You simply can't manage or protect what you can't see. You need to build a complete, continuous picture of how all your digital identities and cryptographic keys are being created, protected, and used within your enterprise. This might involve manual business process discovery initially, but ideally you use technology to continuously scan your environment and maintain that inventory.
Okay, know what you have. Second, define clear policies.
Exactly. Establish clear, comprehensive policies covering things like secure device and user authentication for both remote and traditional workforces. Identify and address any specific policies required for regulatory compliance, especially if you're in a heavily regulated industry like medical devices or finance. If your organization publishes business-critical software, define robust policies for software supply chain security, including code signing and SBOMs. And finally, establish or evolve your zero-trust initiatives, particularly for cloud-native workloads that process sensitive data. These policies provide the essential guardrails for your entire digital trust journey.
Makes sense. Third recommendation, centralized PKI management.
This is crucial for achieving what they call crypto agility, the ability to rapidly update and remediate cryptographic assets across your entire environment when needed, like replacing a compromised certificate or upgrading algorithms. To prevent future disruptions and minimize risk, organizations really need to deploy tools that allow them to centrally manage and automate digital certificates and PKI functions. This centralized approach offers enhanced security, much improved efficiency, and simplified administration, which is absolutely critical as those certificate lifespans continue to shorten.
And finally, number 4, prioritize based on business impact.
Right. Don't try to boil the ocean. Review that comprehensive inventory you created and identify the assets that relate to your most business-critical applications and processes. These are the areas you want to uplift first. Address their security vulnerabilities before moving on to implement solutions that streamline other, perhaps less critical, digital trust tasks. For example, maybe you focus first on automating device enrollment for secure remote access if that's a major pain point, or improve cloud security by ensuring server certificates are issued and installed quickly and reliably to protect key data and communications. Focus your efforts where they matter most.
That seems like a practical approach. Now let's talk specifically about managing the entire lifecycle of certificates, and critically, what happens when they need to be invalidated or revoked. This is where the rubber really meets the road for ongoing security maintenance.
Right. Certificate Lifecycle Management, or CLM, is essentially a comprehensive strategy for handling digital certificates throughout their entire lifespan. This includes everything from discovering all the certificates you currently have to issuing new ones, constantly monitoring their status, renewing them before they expire, and even revoking them if they become compromised or are no longer needed. Properly managing each certificate from cradle to grave is absolutely essential to ensure internet communications remain authenticated and secure.
And its importance is only growing, isn't it? Especially with those certificate validity periods shrinking so dramatically.
Yeah.
SSL certificate validity is already down to 1 year. Google's been pushing for 90 days. And now Apple is proposing a really bold 47 days by 2027.
Yeah.
That's frequent.
It's incredibly frequent. This impending reduction makes proper CLM more critical than ever. The risks of an expired certificate, which can lead to disruptive service outages and create significant security vulnerabilities, are substantial and potentially very costly. And this becomes all the more important as the sheer number of digital certificates a modern enterprise has to manage continues to rise almost exponentially. Manual management just won't scale.
So what are the key stages in this continuous certificate lifecycle that need managing?
It generally starts with discovery and cataloging. This gives IT teams that much-needed visibility, ensuring all certificates are accounted for and their statuses are known. This means a thorough, ongoing search for every certificate, regardless of whether it's missing, maybe compromised, unused, or currently valid and up to date. Then comes request and enrollment. This is where users or systems submit certificate signing requests, CSRs, to the CA, which then meticulously confirms their identities before actually creating the digital certificate. After that, you have issuance and provisioning. Certificates are issued as soon as the request meets the CA's criteria, and then they need to be installed or provisioned on the target system, like a web server or a device.
And once they're active and deployed out there, what happens then?
Then we move into usage and monitoring. Digital certificates must be continuously monitored to ensure they're functioning properly and haven't been compromised. Automated alerts for upcoming expiration dates are absolutely crucial here. Then comes expiration and renewal. As we know, digital certificates don't last forever. Timely renewal is essential to maintain encryption and avoid those disruptive outages. Automated CLM really streamlines this stage. And finally, there's revocation and reissuance. If necessary, like if a key is compromised or the certificate is no longer needed, certificates can be invalidated or revoked before their expiry date. A new one might then be reissued if appropriate.
Okay, to make this entire process efficient and secure, there seem to be some best practices for effective certificate management. The sources mention 6 key ones. First, create a clear operations policy.
Yes. Having a policy brings necessary structure to the implementation and ongoing maintenance of certificate management. It sets the ground rules. At a minimum, this policy should outline details on which certificate authorities you use, insights into the enterprise's specific usage rules for different types of digital certificates. It should define roles, responsibilities, and permissions within the CLM process, and also detail auditing procedures. This helps ensure compliance with relevant standards and proactively identify potential risks before they become problems.
Second best practice. Ensure thorough certificate discovery across your entire environment.
Certificate discovery plays a really critical, though often underrated role in the whole process. You absolutely need continuous, comprehensive searching for all digital certificates everywhere they might exist. Because this process can be incredibly complex and time-consuming in modern, sprawling IT environments, leveraging automated CLM solutions is highly beneficial. They ensure you have that complete, up-to-date picture of your entire certificate inventory.
Third, adhere to proper ongoing monitoring for all certificates.
Whether you achieve this manually, which is risky, or, much better, with a dedicated CLM tool, all certificates must be tracked and monitored throughout their lifecycle. You need automated notifications and alerts set up well in advance for timely action, either renewal or, if needed, revocation. Relying solely on manual monitoring with spreadsheets or calendar reminders poses significant risks of costly outages and missed security incidents. It's just too easy for things to fall through the cracks.
Fourth, and this is becoming absolutely paramount with those shortening lifespans, leverage certificate automation.
Yes, as we've discussed, expired certificates are a huge operational and security risk. And with certificate lifespans shrinking dramatically, automation is more important than ever. It's becoming table stakes. Manual CLM is incredibly time-consuming, tedious, and highly error-prone. Automated CLM solutions remove this significant burden from already stretched IT teams. They streamline complex workflows, manage both public and private certificates often from a single platform, and significantly reduce the risks of unexpected expirations and related cybersecurity threats.
Fifth, opt for an easily scalable solution.
While you can run CLM systems on premises, cloud-first CLM models are generally preferable today for most organizations. That's due to their inherent scalability, cost-effectiveness, often reducing reliance on internal IT specialists and avoiding hardware costs, and frequently enhanced security postures. They typically provide that single pane of glass for management, which really simplifies oversight in complex, distributed environments spanning on-prem, cloud, and edge.
And the sixth best practice, ensure interoperability, often referred to now as crypto agility.
Right. A CLM solution that is CA agnostic, meaning it can discover, enroll, and manage certificates from both your internal private CAs and various public CAs, is crucial. This helps consolidate technology silos and gives you flexibility. Also really important are versatile integrations with key platforms like cloud providers, AWS, Azure, GCP, common web servers, Apache, Nginx, load balancers, and DevOps tools like Terraform, Ansible, Kubernetes. These integrations are what help drive crypto agility, that ability for organizations to seamlessly adapt to changing cryptographic algorithms, like moving to post-quantum and evolving security standards without major disruption or manual effort.
Okay, now let's finally confront the elephant in the room we keep mentioning, certificate revocation. It's the challenge of invalidation, and it's proven to be a particularly tricky, maybe even broken area in digital trust. First, just remind us, why do certificates even need to be revoked before their natural expiration date in the first place?
Sure, certificates can become untrustworthy before their expiration date for several critical reasons. For example, the most serious is if a certificate's private key is compromised or suspected to be compromised. That means a malicious actor could potentially impersonate the legitimate certificate holder. Immediate revocation is essential. Or the CA itself might discover it improperly issued a certificate. Maybe the validation checks weren't done correctly, necessitating its immediate invalidation and potentially reissuance. Other common reasons include the certificate owner no longer owning the domain name associated with the certificate, or organizational changes like an employee leaving the company, rendering their individual SME or authentication certificate invalid.
Okay, so once a certificate is revoked by the holder in the CA, how do browsers or other clients know to avoid establishing insecure connections with it? This is where those revocation checking mechanisms come into play, starting with the original method, Certificate Revocation List, or CRL. How does that work?
A CRL is basically a periodically updated list, published by the CA, containing the unique serial numbers of all the certificates it has revoked that haven't yet expired. It also includes the timestamp of when each was revoked. CAs compile and publish these lists at defined intervals, typically every 24 hours, but sometimes weekly or even less frequently for some CAs. Browsers are then supposed to download these lists and check if a specific certificate's serial number appears on the list before trusting it.
But there are some serious fundamental drawbacks to CRLs that make them less than ideal in practice, right? What are the main issues?
Yes, several significant ones. The main problem is that CRLs are inherently not real-time. To avoid constantly downloading potentially massive files, CRLs are usually cached by browsers and operating systems for a certain period, often 24 hours or more. This caching creates a significant delay, a window of risk between when a certificate is actually revoked by the CA and when a browser might detect that revocation. During this window, a browser could unknowingly accept a compromised certificate, leaving the user vulnerable to attack. They are also notoriously resource-intensive. Frequently downloading and parsing these potentially huge lists, some CAs have millions of revoked certs, is slow and consumes significant network bandwidth and processing power, which can slow down browsing. Furthermore, if a CRL distribution point is unavailable when a browser tries to check it, operations depending on certificate acceptance, like loading a website, can be blocked, leading to usability issues or even potential denial of service scenarios.
Okay, so CRLs have latency and performance issues. To address these shortcomings, the Online Certificate Status Protocol, or OCSP, was introduced as a supposedly more real-time solution. How does OCSP work?
OCSP defines an API, basically a specific request response protocol. It allows web browsers to send a real-time request to a dedicated OCSP server, often called an OCSP responder, usually run by the CA, asking for the status of one specific certificate using its serial number. The responder checks its database, which is supposed to be updated much more frequently than CRLs, and quickly returns a simple status: good, revoked, or unknown. It was designed specifically to provide that immediate revocation status check without the download delays and bulkiness of CRLs.
Sounds better in theory.
Yeah.
But despite its promise, you mentioned the industry is actually shifting away from OCSP now. The CA Browser Forum recently voted to make CRLs a requirement again and OCSP optional for publicly trusted certs. Why is this happening if OCSP was meant to be better?
It's a complex situation, but the shift is due to several critical issues discovered with OCSP in practice. First, OCSP introduces significant privacy concerns. Each OCSP request typically includes the certificate's serial number, which directly links to a specific website domain, along with the client's IP address. OCSP responders log these requests. Over time, these logs can build a detailed profile of which IP addresses are visiting which websites. This browsing behavior data could potentially be aggregated, sold, or used for surveillance purposes, which many find unacceptable.
Wow, yeah, that's a huge privacy problem I wasn't aware of.
It really is. Second, OCSP requests are often vulnerable to interception and tampering. Believe it or not, many OCSP requests are still sent over plain HTTP, not HTTPS. This lack of encryption means an attacker on the network path can view these requests and, more worryingly, potentially modify the responses. They could theoretically intercept a revoked response and alter it to say good, tricking the browser. Or they could simply block the OCSP response entirely, an OCSP block. How browsers handle a blocked or failed OCSP check varies. Some might fail open, accept the certificate anyway. Others might fail closed, block the site. Failing open is obviously insecure, leading users to potentially unsafe sites.
Okay, privacy risks and tampering risks. What else?
And finally, OCSP is also resource-intensive in its own way, creating significant operational burdens for CAs. Supporting OCSP requires incredibly high availability for the responders they know to be up basically 100% of the time and handle huge query volumes. They also need precise clock synchronization with the CA systems. This introduces significant architectural and operational complexity and cost for the CAs running these services. Because of these challenges and the performance impact on browsing if every check blocks, many browsers historically haven't implemented full, strict OCSP checking, especially hard fail, where they block access if the check fails. Prioritizing user experience and avoiding website loading glitches sometimes means sacrificing that absolute real-time security check, again, creating that critical window of vulnerability.
So listening to all that, it really sounds like both CRL and OCSP have pretty fundamental flaws. It makes sense why many security experts argue that certificate revocation as it exists today is effectively not really used reliably by clients or is simply broken.
That's the unfortunate reality, yes. This creates a significant vulnerability that few end users truly appreciate. Even if a certificate is compromised, say, a malicious actor steals a website's private key delays or outright failures in revocation checking, every browsers and other clients can mean that compromised certificate is still trusted for a period of time, maybe hours or even days. This potentially enables successful man-in-the-middle attacks where users think they have a secure connection, but don't. It's a critical weakness in an otherwise generally robust system, and it highlights why things like rapid certificate replacement and shorter certificate lifespans are becoming so important to minimize the impact window if revocation doesn't work quickly.
A really sobering point about the fragility there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn our gaze towards the future now. What are the key PKI and cybersecurity trends we can expect to see shaping things for 2025 and beyond? How will PKI evolve? First up, the unavoidable topic, the rise of AI in PKI.
Yeah, AI is touching everything, and PKI is no exception. As AI and machine learning advance, their integration into PKI systems is becoming essential, both for attackers and defenders. We're seeing AI-driven phishing and spoofing attacks getting incredibly sophisticated, making traditional detection methods less effective. So cyber defenses must follow suit. AI and machine learning are poised to play a much bigger role in PKI management itself, helping predict certificate expirations more accurately, detecting anomalies in certificate usage patterns that might indicate compromise, and ultimately helping prevent outages. Security vendors are already actively integrating AI capabilities into their PKI and CLM platforms to create more intelligent and agile solutions. And looking broader, with AI generating so much content now, blurring the lines between real and fake material online, having robust identity verification, very likely PKI-based, will become absolutely essential for users to trust any online media they consume. How do you know that video or article is authentic? PKI might play a role. We'll also certainly see continued global legislation around AI, like the EU's Artificial Intelligence Act becoming fully effective in 2025, emphasizing responsible AI use, which will inevitably impact how AI is applied within PKI management too.
Okay, AI is one major force. Second, preparing for post-quantum cryptography, or PQC, seems to be a rapidly growing priority.
It absolutely is. The steady advancement of quantum computing poses a significant long-term existential threat to the current cryptographic algorithms underlying PKI, like RSA and ECC. So the focus now is firmly on developing and implementing new cryptographic algorithms, post-quantum cryptography, that are designed to withstand the computational power of future quantum computers, ensuring our data remains secure down the road. Google and NIST, the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, are really leading the charge here. NIST released its first official draft standards for post-quantum encryption algorithms just this year, and Google has already introduced a hybrid post-quantum key agreement algorithm in Chrome for TLS connections, signaling that this technology transition is much closer than many people might think. Adapting to quantum-resistant encryption is becoming an immediate strategic priority for organizations and CAs. They need to start planning now to stay ahead of inevitable regulatory requirements and the eventual quantum threat itself. Remember that survey finding? The typical enterprise estimates it will take 3 years just to fully prepare their systems. The time to start that inventory and planning process is really now.
Wow, okay. Third trend, digital identity and the impact of ongoing regulatory changes will continue to profoundly shape PKI adoption.
Definitely. We're seeing developing cyber threats constantly leading to stricter requirements for digital certificate management and identity verification across practically all industries. Compliance standards are becoming particularly focused on inherently at-risk sectors like healthcare, finance, critical infrastructure, and manufacturing. We have upcoming regulations like PSD3 in Europe related to payment services expected around 2025-2026, and updates to hyper-privacy and security rules in the U.S. being enforced from 2025. All of these emphasize the need for strong digital identity verification and robust compliance measures. This will inevitably push broader and deeper adoption of PKI as the foundational layer for ensuring secure and compliant digital interactions, especially in the face of those increasing AI-driven threats and regulatory demands.
Fourth, the absolutely explosive growth of the Internet of Things, or IoT, will continue to demand an expanding role for PKI.
The numbers are just staggering. The number of connected IoT devices is projected to reach something like 55.7 billion by 2025. That's billions with a B. This massive expansion absolutely demands a foundational security layer, and PKI is increasingly seen as essential for securing these vast IoT ecosystems. It provides that crucial device communication security by encrypting data transmissions. It provides authentication using unique digital certificates to verify device identities, ensuring only legitimate devices can access networks or receive commands. And it provides data integrity by allowing devices to sign the data they send with their private keys. Leading IoT platforms like AWS IoT and Microsoft Azure IoT Hub already strongly support PKI-based device authentication, and legislation like the U.S. IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2020 and the U.K.'s Product Security and Telecommunications Infrastructure (PSTI) regime continue to emphasize secure device identity management, pushing manufacturers to integrate robust PKI capabilities from the start.
Okay. Fifth trend. The growing adoption of zero-trust architecture will fundamentally rely on PKI as a critical component.
Yes, the zero trust security model, which operates on that core principle of never trust, always verify, is definitely gaining significant traction across industries. This means moving away from perimeter-based security and towards continuous verification of users, devices, and applications for every access request, regardless of location. PKI is absolutely essential for effectively implementing zero trust. It provides the strong identity-based authentication and the encrypted communication channels needed for every interaction within a zero-trust environment. You need to know who or what is connecting, and PKI provides that cryptographic proof. The U.S. Executive Order on Cybersecurity back in May 2021 already mandated a federal shift towards zero trust, and industry analysts like Gartner predict that by 2025, over 60% of enterprises will look to replace their traditional VPNs with zero trust network access (ZTNA) solutions, which heavily rely on PKI for secure device and user authentication.
Sixth, relatedly, the continued growth of cloud-based solutions and cloud-native architectures will also drive further PKI adoption.
Absolutely. Businesses are rapidly embracing cloud-native architectures, deploying applications, microservices, and containerized environments predominantly in the cloud. The inherent need for robust security measures in these highly dynamic, ephemeral, and scalable cloud environments means we're seeing a surge in PKI adoption, specifically for securing cloud-based applications and infrastructure. Gartner predicts that by 2025, over 95% of new digital workloads will be deployed on cloud-native platforms, up from less than 30% just a few years ago. That's a massive shift. So PKI solutions themselves will continue to evolve to seamlessly support these cloud-native deployments. They'll offer more scalable and flexible certificate management tailored specifically to cloud requirements, with greatly enhanced automation and deeper integration capabilities, for example, to secure communication between microservices using mutual TLS or to secure container identities.
And finally, perhaps the most immediate trend impacting day-to-day IT operations, those shortening certificate life cycles we discussed, which absolutely necessitate crypto agility.
Yes, this is having a very direct impact right now. The trend towards shortening certificate lifespans is definitely accelerating, driven by evolving security concerns and upcoming regulations. The primary goal is to reduce the window of opportunity for compromised certificates to be exploited if revocation mechanisms fail or are slow. We saw the CA Browser Forum reduce public SSL TLS certificate validity down to 1 year back in 2020. Google has been strongly advocating for 90 days for a while now. And Apple recently proposed that really bold move to limit public SSL TLS certificates to just 47 days by 2027.
47 days. That's going from annual renewal to renewing almost weekly. That's a huge shift in management intensity.
It is a monumental shift. It means a dramatic increase in the frequency of renewals and a much, much tighter management window. Mistakes become much more costly. The rise in sophisticated phishing attacks and past incidents of certificate misissuance also fuel this push for shorter validity periods. Ultimately, shorter life cycles make automated certificate issuance, renewal, and deployment processes absolutely critical. Automation becomes non-negotiable. It ensures prompt updates happen reliably without human error, significantly reducing the risks associated with compromised or expired certificates. And it's the key enabler for achieving that crypto agility, the ability to quickly and adaptively manage your cryptographic assets in this increasingly dynamic digital landscape.
Well, we've certainly peeled back a lot of layers on PKI today. It's truly the invisible architecture that secures almost every digital interaction you have, whether you realize it or not. From authenticating websites and devices to protecting your emails and ensuring software integrity, PKI really is everywhere. We've explored its foundational components, its incredibly diverse applications, the pressing challenges organizations face in managing digital trust effectively, and the exciting yet definitely demanding trends shaping its future.
And what truly stands out from our deep dive, I think, is this. Digital trust is no longer just a nice-to-have or a technical luxury. It's a fundamental, non-negotiable requirement for every organization and, indeed, for our individual safety and privacy online. The clear takeaway from all the industry reports and expert sources is that organizations that proactively embrace mature PKI management practices, especially leveraging centralization and automation, aren't just more secure. They're also more resilient against outages, more agile in responding to threats and changes, and ultimately demonstrably more successful in the modern digital economy.
So, as certificate lifespans continue that relentless march towards shorter durations, and as AI-driven threats inevitably become more sophisticated, perhaps consider this. How much do we, perhaps unwittingly, rely on potentially broken or fragile elements within the systems we trust implicitly every day, like the current state of certificate revocation? And as new technologies like quantum computing and pervasive AI continue to emerge, what might be the next surprising, maybe seemingly innocuous aspect of our digital lives that PKI will be called upon to secure? Or perhaps fundamentally reshape in this ongoing quest for certainty and trust in a continuously evolving digital world? What implications might all of this have for your own personal digital footprint and security posture going forward?